College of Health and Human Development, we're calling ourselves the College of Life now because we
I
see that
saw that.
we cover the entire lifespan in all these wonderful ways. And so I wanted to ask you, because the topic of this conversation is obviously about well-being, and you seem to have that under control. So I want you to tell me, what does well-being mean to you?
Well, well-being, but this is how I learned what well-being was. When I turned 12 years old, it was like a banner year for me because I was finally adopted along with my sister. And I don't know why I'm going to cry, but no, I'm not.
It's okay. You can cry. It's normal.
No,
I didn't need to make you cry. I feel bad.
I wouldn't do this. Right? It was so settling to me. I felt for the first time I wasn't in survival mode, and just give me 1 second, okay? God, I hate myself when I do this.
No, please. You don't have to understand that is a genuine emotion, and genuine emotions are precisely what I'm talking about. Remember what I was saying to you just earlier? That's what makes you perfect. That's the loving part of you. I don't know if you know that or not. The fact that you could be so free and so open and so caring, that an experience that meant something to you still means something to you.
It does.
Years later. That is wonderful.
Yeah,
that's a wonderful gift.
I knew how important it was when in the same year, and I don't think it's any coincidence at all, I went to see a movie that starred Loretta Young, and in it she was a speech teacher, and in it she adopted, well, she was a speech teacher for an orphan, and she adopted the orphan. And I said, that's what I want to be. It felt right to me. It felt like, when I look back on it and say it that way, I think that orphan was me, but I also think that that's where my life work started. And from that point on, whenever I had free time, I would get on the bus, like I'd be 13, and go to Belleville, New Jersey, where the cerebral palsy clinic was. And Mrs. Geiger was the speech therapist there. She let me observe. And I learned so much from her. And I just never gave it up. And everything I wrote in high school, including my sophomore thesis, my sophomore thesis was about the Bobath method in cerebral palsy, or some other aspect of speech pathology that hadn't really graduated yet. And this was in the early 60s. We were at the psychology level and the behavior modification level more than at the neurology or dysphagia level. It was brand new. So I felt, I think, an inner peace. I was able to not be nervous about where I was going to be next month or next year. And I think when I talked to my sister about it, she said, yeah, that was about the year I felt about the same way, that we could start making plans. And that's because these people said they would send us to college. And that was a big deal. Because
that is a big deal.
Yeah. And I thought, wow. And I've got to do this. And this is what I want to do with my career. So it just felt like me. It just did. The field of speech pathology. That's where it started, age 12. So, but that's also, I figured out that's why. And I wasn't going to say anything because every time I say it, I cry. And I thought, no, I better just be genuine about this. So what I mean. You
can't help but be genuine. So that's okay. But I think that's a wonderful story. But more than that, it really brings home the connection. I mean, that's such a perfect. Sometimes people can't remember how they come to understand how they're going to be who they were or who they become or how their careers fall into place. And for you to do that and connect it with your own general sense of self and, love, self-love and caring, all those things are exactly the definition of well-being. So you actually got the answer long, long, long before most people. So I think that's amazing. So how did you move from being a student here at CSUN to the kind of career you had? You talked about some of the preparations you were doing in
Yes.
school, because the profession has shifted a little bit.
Yes, it sure has. I, when I came out here, I had almost finished under Venturi Newby and my audiology master's degree at the University of Maryland. So when I came out here, I was intending to finish it because my husband graduated from law school about the same time, and I wasn't done and he was. And so we were here. Dr. Reed took me in and said, you can get we don't have audiology here. But by the way, he said, you're working at Glendale Adventist as the audiologist. He said, and when you're in my class, he said, would you mind teaching? And he gave me 1 day's notice of the special testing tomorrow. And I said, sure. Now I went home, Mr. Webb, Dr. Webb. What I did, I went home, and at 2:00 in the morning, after I put the kids to bed, finished cleaning up, and started to work on my speech for this class, I was thinking, are you nuts? Why did you do this? Why did you accept this? And I'm glad I did, because I learned from that experience. Sometimes you can do it tired, exhausted. You can do it through if you really want to do it, you want to have the experience. And because of that, my career got launched at Northridge, because right after I gave that lecture, he said, when you graduate? And I said, right, in January. And he said, how would you like to teach here? And that's how I got launched. CSUN took me in. CSUN gave me my master's degree. I earned it, of course, but and then CSUN asked me to teach there. And then they asked me to help them start the audiology program. So it was a beautiful launch, let me tell you.
Wow, that's amazing. And now we've come full circle, because now we got the audiology program back.
Yes, and it has a doctorate.
Yes, now we have a doctorate, stronger than ever. And I want you to know, in the first 2 classes, there's all female students. All female students. I was shocked, because usually when you go to audiology program, you see a lot of men.
Yeah.
And now, so the students were fascinating. I've had a chance to talk to them. Just some of the most intelligent and wonderful people you ever wanted to meet. But that says a lot about your profession. It really attracts people with a certain kind of personality. I find that you cannot be in the speech language pathology, audiology area without having a very strong sense of caring, lots of empathy, and just the willingness to work with people who don't always come to you 100%. They come maybe 40%.
Yeah.
And you help them get to where they need to be. So it's a wonderful profession. So let me ask you, what advice would you give to students today who were thinking about this?
First of all, Dr. Julie Gardner and I learned when we hired a speech pathologist in our practice, we would watch them carefully. Most of them had something in common other than the empathy and the willingness to do the job. And that was intuition. And by that, I mean, they would pick up on nuances of behavior of whether it was a dysphagia patient with swallowing disorder, a patient with a neurological impairment, or a child with on the autism spectrum. They would pick up on nuances, and if the lesson plan wasn't going well, they would alter it, and because they had seen something in the person's behavior, and they just changed completely their goals. These are the kind of people we hired, and most of them were from Northridge, by the way. So I will say that. And Julie and I just marveled at the idea that particular skill is just something that most of the people who come into speech pathology automatically have it. And the reason, I learned that, no one told us that way back in 1961, 62, 63. But I learned it when I was in a clinic in West Orange, New Jersey. It was like a neurology clinic for people with brain damage. And the person that was assigned to me was an author, very famous author at the time. She wrote the book Room for One More. And
Yes.
and she had a stroke, and she had expressive aphasia, which meant she could understand, but she had a problem. She couldn't speak, and she hadn't spoken since she had the stroke. So day one, and I get this patient, and I'm being observed by her physician and the college supervisor and the person in the clinic. And I'm looking at her, and her head is doing this. And I'm listening, and I said, is that music in the background? I said to the people, and they said, yes, that's it was the holidays. It was holiday music. So I ran over to the piano, got the metronome, and I put it on the desk, and I put it back, and here it's going like this. And I started to sing, deck the halls with boughs of holly. And darned if she didn't add, ba la 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 la, la 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 la.
Exactly.
And their mouths dropped open.
Mm-hmm.
Now, later in speech pathology under Nancy Helm-Esterbrooks, that we became fast friends, she developed it. It's called melodic intonation therapy. And what happens is you're pulling language from one side of the brain to the other where it's damaged. So we didn't know you could do that in the early 1960s. That's what I was doing, and I didn't know I was doing it. But my point is, this is often the way things emerge in the field. And so what I have to tell speech pathologists is trust your instincts, trust your ability to look at behavior and make alterations in whatever you're doing. It's a wonderful experience when you have these aha moments, when you just feel like you could walk on water, and you help the patients. You actually go home crying tears of joy, just being so happy,
Well, I could actually cry with you because my mother has these things.
She does.
So, yeah, my mother has aphasia and apraxia. And so, interestingly enough, when she's angry, she is very clear, because whatever part of the brain that controls that, there's no problem with it. But
are they like overlearned words that she's using?
No, my mother uses, these are interesting words. But it's interesting because she does word substitution now. So she can say things, but when there's a noun, she substitutes it with GR. So today she said to me, I'm ready for my GR, which meant lunch. And later in the later evening, she said, I'm ready for my GR. It now means dinner. I know how to translate it because it's contextual. But her speech language pathologist and her audiologist were people trained here at CSUN and at Northwestern. And so I know, and the woman said to me, your mother can sing what she wants to say, but she won't sing. My mother won't sing. But if she sang, I could get the whole sentence. But it's very interesting, the creativity and I know that they adapt the lessons because she was going in with these certain lessons, but my mother wanted to talk about her children and her family. And so they discovered that if she talks about her children and her family, she talks a lot, and she got much better. So she's much better now. And like, if you were to meet her, you would not know until she got complicated with a sentence. So she could say to you, hello, how are you? And you would speak back, and she would say, oh, your hair is beautiful. So she can do stuff like that.
Yeah.
See, it would fool you until you got to the more complex speech. Then when it's more complex, she just sort of substitutes. But I appreciate your profession. I really love what you guys do. It has made a big difference. You brought my mother back to me. So you want to cry? There you go. Here's what to cry about. And it has made a big difference. So I want to thank you for this. This has been wonderful. I really miss seeing you guys. I can't wait until we can meet again in person, because it'll be so much fun, and we'll have so much more to talk about.